in fact, the very nature of the research and development program that is going on in Seattle, Washington, and I think by extension what's being done to TIs around the country is very largely geared towards the monitoring of human beings for the specific purpose of recording every aspect of human existence, to monitor our thoughts and to monitor our emotions and our feelings, to inform computer software that is used on robots, that is used on computers themselves, to make them as human-like as possible.
Okay, we're back again with part 2 of this presentation. This is patent number 6506148B2. We talked about the 4 different types of fields, or at least I introduced the subject of the 4 different types of pulsed fields in this patent. There are pulsed electric fields. It talks about pulsed magnetic fields, and then it talks about weak heat pulses applied to the skin, and then subliminal acoustic pulses. Each one of these pulses actually have a specific role. It says here, the excitation of the sensory resonance through weak heat pulses applied to the skin provides a clue about what's going on neurologically. Goes on to say cutaneous temperature sensing receptors are known to fire spontaneously. And we looked a little bit at those cutaneous receptors. Here you can see the 3D model of the skin. You can see those cutaneous receptors highlighted in blue. They definitely provide information as to what's going on as far as temperature. But all of this is important. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but it says here, weak heat pulses delivered to the skin in periodic fashion will therefore cause a slight frequency modulation in the spike patterns generated by the nerve. So every nerve generates a spike pattern, or basically a spike pattern and a resting pattern. And hopefully I'll kind of demonstrate that a little bit later. I know this is really technical, but I do want to show you a 3D model just to show you how, if weak heat pulses are applied to the head on the right side, as you can see here in this 3D model, there are corresponding nerves on the right side that deliver sensory signals, and those sensory signals can result in physiological effects throughout the body. It says here, since stimulation through other sensory modalities result in similar physiological effects, it is believed that frequency modulations of spontaneous afferent nerve spiking patterns occur there as well. So what is a modulation? Basically, a modulation is just like you would turn up a car radio. What they're saying is they're able to modulate the sensory signals that come to the brain from the central nervous system, and they can read that out. They can pick it up. So these pulses come in the form of magnetic pulses, electric pulses, and weak heat pulses applied to the skin. It's pretty much like a temperature gun, like the infrared temperature gun as seen here on the screen. That temperature gun uses the electromagnetic spectrum, and it uses the infrared part of the spectrum. You've got radio waves there, infrared waves, then you've got visible light, what's visible to the naked eye. But as you hold up that temperature gun to take a temperature, what it's doing is it's taking infrared light and it's picking up thermal radiation. Basically all living matter has a type of thermal energy. And through the process of what's called emissivity, the ability to be able to measure an object's radiation that emits thermal radiation, it transfers that into numbers that can be read and understood. And a similar type of technology is used, not exactly the same, but in principle it's similar to the infrared temperature gun. So I guess what I'm saying in essence is, if you were to measure the parietal lobe's emissivity, you could pick up all of the details throughout the body. For example, for the person that plays the piano, you can measure the parietal lobe and you can pick up the details as to what fingers are being played, and you can do this all remotely. You don't have to even be near the subject. The occipital lobe picks up the vision, but all of these sensory input signals are integrated in the parietal lobe. And this is essentially what Brian Coffron, the whistleblower from Amazon, was talking about. I mean, essentially what he was saying is that, because of his position, or he saw this technology, so he knows firsthand what this technology is about and what it can do. And he talks about it here.
My responsibilities in surveillance as a otherwise normal security specialist, I was showed this technology at work. And it was through the perspective, of course, of the camera, and what I was told that it was obvious it was being used through the eyes of the targets. So I have seen it, and it is absolutely remarkable. It's just like a first-person, video game or something where you see right through the eyes of the individual.
So in essence, what I'm saying here is that there's technology out there, just like the infrared gun, that locks onto the forehead and reads out the internal temperature status. There's technology that can lock onto the parietal lobe and read out the details of the frontal lobe, or read out the details of the occipital lobe, pick up the vision. And that is in essence what I believe this patent is telling us, as well as other patents that I'm going to be going over in the near future. Going back to the patent itself, here at the top, paragraph 20, it says, further understanding may be gained by considering the electric charges that accumulate on the skin as a result of induced tissue currents. Ignoring thermodynamics, one would expect that the accumulated polarization charges to be confined strictly to the outer surface of the skin. But charge density is caused by a slight excess in positive or negative ions, and thermal motion distributes the ions through a thin layer. This implies that externally applied electric fields actually penetrate a short distance into the tissue, noting actually penetrates. This is the reason why applied energy to the outside of the body actually penetrates into the tissue instead of stopping abruptly at the outer skin. In this manner, a considerable fraction of the applied field may be brought to bear on some cutaneous nerve endings, so that a slight modulation of the type noted by Terzulu and Bullock may indeed occur. And going to the next page here at the top, it says, the stimulation frequencies at which specific physiological effects occur depend somewhat on the autonomic nervous system state and probably on the endocrine state as well. Weak magnetic fields that are pulsed with a sensory resonance frequency can induce the same physiological effect as pulsed electric fields. Unlike the latter, however, the magnetic fields penetrate biological tissue with nearly undiminished strength. All right, I want to skip to the summary here, just kind of go over the summary and just kind of summarize all the points that we've made so far. It says computer monitors and TV monitors can be made to emit weak low frequency electromagnetic fields merely by pulsing the intensity of displayed images. Experiments have shown that half-hertz sensory resonance can be excited in this manner in a subject near the monitor. The 2.4 hertz sensory resonance can also be excited in this fashion. Hence, a TV monitor or computer monitor can be used to manipulate the nervous system of nearby people. And, this again is, I know it's sort of really technical, but I want to kind of hone in on this point here where it says that the 2.4 hertz sensory resonance can also be excited in this fashion. We're talking half hertz. We're talking very low electromagnetic fields. Skipping over, it says certain monitors can emit electromagnetic field pulses that excite a sensory resonance in a nearby subject through image pulses that are so weak as to be subliminal. Now, this is the point that I made earlier. I want to make it again because this is where I believe it sort of dovetails or at least connects to the TI community. It says, this is unfortunate since it opens up a way for mischievous application of the invention whereby people are exposed unknowingly to manipulation of their nervous systems for someone else's purpose. Such applications would be unethical and is, of course, not advocated. It is mentioned here in order to alert the public of the possibility of covert abuse that may occur while being online or while watching TV, a video, or a DVD. Now, again, friends, this is the patent, United States patent, dated January 14, 2003.
I can disrupt an individual from the level of their cell to their system and disrupt individuals on a variety of levels, from individuals all the way up to the social fabric. Target a specific individual, change or eliminate that individual with very little attribution and trace, and be able to leave prior to any attributions.
With one pulse frequency, you can just make people so suicidal, they can't be bothered to act like a demonstrator anymore. All they want to do is sleep or lay in bed all day.
There's an infrastructure in place in the United States and worldwide that NSA has built in cooperation with other governments as well, that intercepts basically every digital communication, every radio communication, every analog communication that it has sensors in place to detect.
Clearly, one of the things we can also do is transcranial neuromodulation, the idea of going through the skull to modulate the node and network activity of the brain, to implant certain brain-machine interfaces. These are many of the DARPA programs that you may hear of now. Probably the one that is most notorious is something called the N3 program, which is the non-invasive neurosurgical neuromodulation program being run by their program manager, Dr. Al Mundi. The idea here is to put minimal-sized electrodes in a network within a brain through only minimal intervention to be able to read and write into the brain function in real time, remotely. And by affecting the way that brain is built and the way it functions, influence in ways that are kinetic and non-kinetic. The attitudes, beliefs, thoughts, emotions, activities. Look at the power that understanding tools and techniques of the brain sciences afford.
If you want to cause a specific psychiatric illness, you would have an infrared device that followed the person, and you would link it to a pencil-thin microwave source, so the microwave beam would always target a specific gland or a specific part of the brain or an eye or a heart. So you would have them being targeted.
So right now I want to document evidence that I believe clearly identifies myself being targeted, specifically in the early morning hours. And the way I was able to measure it was through the use of meters, electromagnetic meters. And a lot of the information that I talked about or that was mentioned in this patent has been happening to myself. And obviously I cannot show the physiological effects, but I can show the effects that are read out through the use of these electromagnetic meters. To begin with, I want to sort of define how one would measure extremely low frequencies or fields using power meters. Power meters are sort of enumerated in power density readings. And power density is defined as power flow per unit area. For example, power density is commonly expressed in terms of watts per meter square, milliwatts per square meter or per square centimeter, and microwatts per square centimeter. The type of meter that I'm using is one of the meters. This can be purchased on Amazon. It's electromagnetic meter advanced GQ EMF 390 multi-field electromagnetic radiation 3-in-1. It's not only electromagnetic fields, but extremely low frequencies or low fields, as well as RF fields. And here you can see the readout on February 13th, 2020 in the morning. I want you to notice the time there. It's documented as 3:14 a.m. I live very remotely, and I have no cell towers and no cell signals or anything like that coming through my place. But I notice here high levels of EMF, both on the Tesla meter as well as on the RF meter as well. And you can notice here that on the RF, it's reading microwatts per centimeter square, very high RF frequency fields coming in. and it's also reading electromagnetic fields, which are sort of high. But on the Tesla readout, you'll notice that the readout here is high at 430, but watch it drop. When it drops like that, the field stops. Somehow the field stops, and not only does the field stop, but it seems as though the harassment stops as well. Again, I want to show that readout. That readout started at 430. Here it is again. And this is an actual screenshot showing the readout and then showing the drop. And then here you can see the next day, you can see the time there at 3:55. This is February the 14th. I want you to notice here the readout on the Tesla meter is low. The readout on the RF EMF meter is low or normal. And this is typically what I'll see, you know, unless the fields begin to increase and then the harassment starts. This is again at 3:55, normal readings. This is on the next day. And you can see not only on the Tesla meter, but you can see on the RF meter as well. And then you can notice here on the third day, this is February 16th, 2020. It's showing normal levels. The Tesla meter showing normal, and the RF meter is showing normal as well. The EMF is a little bit high on the RF meter, but this is 4:28 actually in the morning, and you can see that for the most part it's low. I think it's important to bring awareness to the public and to those who maybe are hearing about these particular symptoms. In my next presentation, I want to go over this patent here. This is an apparatus to affect brainwave entrainment over premise power line wiring. So be sure to subscribe so that you can get the update for the next video coming out.